hold up. Before you drop VTOL, because you don't know what the heck you're doing, what do all these buttons mean? Watch this video to learn what the heck to do. There's so much stuff. But luckily, I'll tell you guys all about this stuff, give you a quick little rundown, tell you guys how to fly, what each system does, and how to maneuver your aircraft in a cool way. And then next video, we're actually going to be discussing weapons and how to actually use weapons and stuff like that. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. We have 4 AIM-120Cs, which are your air-to-air radar missiles. Then we have your 2 AIRS-Ts. Those are going to be your infrared heat-seeking missiles. Your AGM-165s, your fire-and-forget anti-tank missiles, 2 of them. Then you have your AGM-89s, your anti-ship cruise missiles. Only equip this if you're going to be anticipating any sort of ships in the water. So pretty much first thing you're going to do is you're going to look over on the right side here. You're going to lower your canopy. Nobody wants to hear the engine starting up and taking off. That's just, nobody wants to hear that. We're going to flip on our main battery switch. It's going to be in the right side underneath your 2 engine switches. You're going to flick that on. Now don't leave this 2 on before turning on your APU, otherwise it's going to die. So we're going to flip on your APU, and we're going to wait for our RPM gauge to go all the way up here to the end of the green, kind of touching the red. Ta-da! And we're going to flip on our switch covers for our 2 engines, and we're going to flip on our switches. Now our RPMs are going to go up, and they're going to come back down. Once they settle, you can actually turn off your APU, but when you turn off your APU, push your throttle up just a tiny bit, just to make sure your battery doesn't die. So, you got your engine started. You can flip down your covers, so that way you don't accidentally bump those and turn them off. And we're going to discuss our MFDs. So, we're going to turn on the switches here in the bottom left and the bottom right of your displays. And we're going to turn on our top displays by pressing the button with the circle. So this is going to be your RWR. Make sure to select RWR in the top left. And on the top right, we're going to click fuel. Make sure we manage our fuel. Now, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff on each display. Now, they are the same, so you don't have to worry about remembering that this display has this and this display has that. They're both the same. Don't worry about it. Now, a lot of people set up their radar on the left display and their navigation on the right display. Now, when you turn on your navigation, zoom it out just a tiny bit, so at least that way you can see kind of what's around you without losing critical information. But we're going to go back and we're going to discuss the different types of stuff here. Now, the main things that you gotta worry about is you're equipped, your mounted equipment. You can see all your different ornaments and stuff like that. Now, your options. This is how you change your options. You can change your joystick sensitivity and your joystick mode. I don't like my stick in the center, so I like to go in here sometimes when it's in the center and move it back to the right. So that way I don't have to actually move my arm, I can just move my wrist. Now your communications. This is for when you land and rearm. Countermeasure systems. You don't really actually have to touch this too much. It's mainly just for specific use case scenarios. Your objectives. If you play any sort of mission or campaign, this is going to be a vital screen to look at. Right now we're in a free flight with no enemies. We're just going to be learning the basics of flying. This has nothing on it. External cameras aren't really necessary, but they're there if you want to. You don't want to turn all the way around, and you want to look at your stuff, see what you got. Your targeting pod, by far the most important thing to have if you're targeting ground troops. You need this to be able to maneuver. You can turn it to your head and look around if we had our visor on, but we don't. So we'll turn that off. And GPS targets. This is going to be important for when you're pathing to GPS waypoints on your nav. Flight data, don't really need it. Log, this is good for multiplayer. Your game menu. So if you start way over here, even though you're sitting normally, you can actually come in here and click center and reposition yourself to sit normally. Radar, obviously I had it over on this screen. This is how you turn on your radar switch. It's going to be in the center to your left. Turn that on. And now you have a functioning radar. Your radar is not going to look like this, but if you've ever played DCS, if you want it to look like DCS because you've seen a lot of DCS, you can actually go into options here and change it from PPI to B-scope. But if you're not from DCS and you have it set like this normally, this is what it's going to look like. Now it's time for your HUD. HUD switch is going to be on your top right. We're going to flick that on and we're going to see our HUD. Now there's a lot of information here, but we're going to turn on our HMCS, which is just our visor power, which if you want to lower your visor, it's on your ear, right trigger, or you can come down here to the button where it says visor and night vision. If you want to turn on night vision, put your hand up to your eyes and then click trigger. If you want to push to talk using your mouth, put your controller up to your mouth until it vibrates and click trigger. Or you can hold joystick and push A on your right controller, activating push to talk. If you want to adjust this, typically it's going to start off as off, but you want to turn it to PTT or push to talk and make sure you're on team, unless you want to switch over to global or frequency. This is how you adjust your volume, clockwise to turn it up, counterclockwise to turn it down. This is your brake lock and your wings, but we'll touch that later. This is your master arm switch. This is how you actually activate your guns. As you can see in the top left of our HUD, it says no arm. We're going to flip that on, and suddenly we can see our cannon here. That's how you know that we have activated our master arm switch. Over here is our flight assists. You don't really want to be touching any of this too much. When you're dogfighting, you would like to turn off your G limiter. But if you're new to this game, I recommend keeping that on, just so you don't accidentally pull too many Gs and whip your rings off. You didn't hear that. This is your landing gear and your flaps. We'll discuss that more once we actually get ready to take off. You have your different lights you can turn on. You have an MP3 player for music, and your fuel dump port and your fuel port to open and close it. You won't need to touch really any of this too much. It's really just for fuel port for aerial refueling, and fuel dump for when you need more TWR and you have too much weight. Now, if you have your visor down, you'll know that you have your HMCS on and your HUD on when you can see your HUD, and you can look over to your left and you can see a miniature version of your HUD. So, what we're going to do is we're going to hold throttle and put it up to about a quarter or a third. We're going to hold left trigger to activate the brake. We're going to disengage brake lock, and we're going to use our right hand to grab the joystick. Now, I like to use my knee to balance my hands so I can get better control over my movements. So, grabbing the joystick, if you twist your hand clockwise or counterclockwise, like you're twisting off a bottle cap, you can actually control your rudder. You can see in the bottom right of my HUD, you can see a green line to control my rudder. Putting it forward, tilting my hand forward, you can actually see that the green dot in the center is moving, tilting left, tilting right, tilting back, and then controlling to each corner. That's the basics of movement. When you're on the taxiway, which majority of the time when you start a mission you will be, you want to use purely the rudder for controlling your steer. So we're going to use the brake to actually control our speed here, and we're going to taxi over to the runway. Alrighty, so now we're lined up on the runway. One thing you want to keep in mind, we're going to activate brake lock here, set your flaps to 1 or 2, whatever your personal preference is. I personally like 1 because typically I'm playing PvP servers, and we'll touch base on that later. And that's about it. So now that we have our flaps set to 1, we're going to disengage brake lock while holding brake, and we're going to push up to mill power. Mill power is pretty much throttle all the way up to the green line, and once our RPM's all the way topped up, we're going to push it into afterburner and let go of the brake. Now we're going to use the rudder to control our plane to make sure we stay centered on the runway. Now, as soon as we hit 150 knots, we're going to pull up and disengage landing gear by pulling the lever up. Now, also while disengaging the landing gear, you can either set your flaps to 0 or from 2 to 1 or 2 to 0, however you like to see fit. And we're going to keep about 10 degrees and climb to about 2,500 feet and slowly bring ourselves back down. Alrighty, so now we're going to touch topic on autopilot and navigation. All you do is reach your right hand over here, or whatever hand you have, click altitude hold, and we're going to hold our altitude where we were originally when we clicked the button. Heading is going to be the HDG on the top of the screen. Right now we're at 199 degrees. We can click that and maintain our heading. We can also click speed here and hold our speed if we'd like, but for right now we're not going to do that. And in fact, I'm going to turn all these off and tilt my stick to the right and gently pull back. So on the left side of our screen here, we can see M, G, and a weird looking A. M stands for Mach, G stands for your G's, and A stands for alphas. Alphas aren't really important, you don't really have to look at that, but you do want to keep in mind your G's. So right now we're pulling about 2.8 G's. Now if I were to pull the stick back even harder, we'll be pulling about close to 10, 9.7 I saw that was the max. That's our G pull. Now if we stay in our G pull for too long, we'll actually eventually pass out. And you can see when we pass out, our vision starts to go black, and once it goes fully black, we'll pass out, and it'll be about 10 seconds before we regain consciousness. During that time, you have absolutely no control over the aircraft. So we're going to actually pivot back over to land here. And while we're doing this, I'd like to touch base on a couple more things about the HUD. So if you see currently those two solid lines that stretch in the middle of my HUD, they stretch out a bit farther. That is the horizon line. If you have your velocity vector, which is this little airplane-looking reticle, has a circle and 3 lines, one out each side and one up top. That is your velocity vector. That is where your plane's going to. So we want to keep that above the horizon line to maintain a positive verticality, which you can see that in the top right. Right now we're climbing about 2,300 feet. If we wanted to switch our altitude mode, we can actually click this button right here. And we can switch from radar, which is going to be directly below us, to ground, or ASL, which is sea level. So we're going to pivot back now.
Over G. Over G.
Pull some G's here.
Over G.
And as you can see, my vision's starting to go black, so we're going to even out so we don't pass out. Now, I'm going to teach you guys some basic maneuvers. So let's say we have an enemy where that green box is, where my TGP is set currently. We have an enemy right there. They're slightly above the mountains, and they're currently locking onto us. We can actually break radar lock by using the terrain to block line of sight and break radar lock.
Altitude. Over G. Altitude. Altitude. Over. Altitude. Pull up. Altitude. Pull up. Altitude. 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 Pull up. Altitude. Pull up. Over G. Altitude. Over G. Altitude. Pull up. Altitude. Pull up. Over G. Altitude. 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 Over G. Plop. Plop. Altitude. Plop. Altitude. 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 Over. Over G. Altitude. 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 Plop. Altitude. 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 Over G. Altitude. 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 Altitude.